Our next speaker is Dr. Theanne Griffith. She is a postdoctoral scientist at Columbia University. I'm very happy that these are her last days in that capacity, and happy to announce to you that we have recruited her to the New Jersey Medical School as our newest faculty member. She is she has been very interested in business dealing with inclusion and diversity. In fact, she had a travel award from the Biophysical Society in that area. She received a grant from the Barrows Wellcome Fund Postdoctoral Enrichment Award, and her scientific interests include mechanisms through which distinct populations of peripheral neurons engage diverse complements of ion channels and receptors to tune excitability and represent the external environment. Her theme is not on there, so I'll read to you the
race and gender.
Yes, it's the meaning of diversity in 2019, race and gender balance.
Yes.
Dr. Griffith.
Okay, I'm gonna probably keep this a little more short, and I'm really excited to be here. When I was invited to talk on this panel, I knew exactly immediately from the beginning what I wanted to talk about. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a Black woman in science. And so before I get started, I just want to give you guys a definition. My mother was a sociologist, so I grew up listening to a lot of sociological terms like intersectionality, but I realized that maybe not everyone is familiar with what this means, and so I wanted to introduce exactly what it is. So intersectionality is the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, to name a few, as they apply to a given individual or group regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage, okay? So that's a lot, that's a mouthful. But what I want to talk about today is I don't really have strategies or what's going on at Columbia or Rutgers regarding diversity. What I'm talking about is a little bit more of a personal, something that's very personal to me. So something that I've noticed through social media, through just in general diversity efforts, is this wonderful, beautiful women in STEM movement. And I am so proud right now to be a woman scientist during this movement. But what it has also drawn to my attention is that it seems to be following in the path of women's movements of, historically speaking, whereby women of color, specifically Black and brown women, are not being included in the conversation as they should be. So to just be more specific, I'm very active on Twitter, DocTheaGriff, if you want to follow me. But I see a lot of hashtags, you know, women in science, hashtags diversity in science. And then I see this picture of all these white people. And I'm like, wait a second. This is a little bit different than what I interpreted diversity to mean. And what I'm finding is that there's becoming a little bit of a mix-up, I would say, between the term diversity and gender balance, okay? And gender balance is having an equal distribution of men and women. And we know science has a gender balance problem. Like, that is clear. No one needs to argue that. But when gender balance becomes synonymous with diversity, the people who are gonna suffer are brown and Black people, both men and women. Because all of a sudden we're gonna become happy and okay with the fact that we have an equally balanced studies section of men and women, or an equally balanced conference organizing committee of men and women, yet all of those faces are white. And I think that's a problem that we need to confront head on. And I'm not saying any of this to, you know, I'm not pointing fingers or blaming or saying that any of this is done intentionally. I 100% know that it's not. But know that it does have harmful consequences. And know that people are gonna be left out if it's not tackled more aggressively and if the movement does not become more inclusive. So I just want to go through a few statistics to kind of reiterate my point, and then end with a few comments. And these tables you guys have seen before, actually. Everyone's been pulling from the same medical school files, but I think I'm going to try and highlight them in a slightly different way, again, to drive home my point. Okay. So this is the number of full-time faculty at all US medical schools divided by male and female. But we all know there's a lot of men in science, as I said, so I kind of want to, we get that. But if you look at the percentage of females, oh, I did it wrong already. Oh no, okay, sorry. I thought I would do better with this. So if you look at the percentage of female faculty, white women are about 60%, right? So when we're talking about promoting women in science, and then the people that we're promoting are typically white women, in the end what we're doing is creating a bigger racial divide between women in science. The second group following that is Asian women, who are about 20%. Black women are about 5%. Hispanic Latino women are about 3%. So there's a huge discrepancy within women in science between racial ethnic groups. And I think that we really, if we're talking about increasing diversity in science, if we're talking about increasing the number of women in science, if we do not actively take a role to increase the number of women of color in science, then we are doing women of color in science a disservice and saying that we don't care if you're here or not. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead to the next slide. So this is the full-time faculty at all US medical schools, divided not only by race and gender, but also by rank. And as you can see here, it's no surprise that white men are doing pretty good, you know. They definitely dominate in the percentage of full professors, assistant professors. Again, Black and Hispanic men are not doing so well, you know, and in fact, on average, they're doing way worse than most white women. And that's another subject that I want to bring up, because as important as gender balance is in science, we cannot forget that the most disadvantaged groups are Black and brown people of both genders. And I know that now diversity initiatives are targeting Black and brown men and women, but I just want to remind people that in our pursuit of gender equality, that we just don't forget people who are still dramatically, like, look at these numbers, dramatically underrepresented in science. Okay, so now on to the women. And so as I think both the speakers before me showed, when it comes to women in science, there's, you know, much fewer than men. But again, when we break this down by race, white women represent currently about 50% of assistant professors, Asian women are about 20%. So within 70% of new hires-ish, and the people that have been hired in the past, let's say 5 years or so, they've been overwhelmingly not Black and brown. Like, really, really overwhelmingly, okay? We have about 5% Black women, 3% Hispanic women. And I mean, the numbers get really abysmal if we talk about indigenous women. And, you know, it's just, it's really bad. When we get to the level of associate professor, you know, again, I think I've made my point. So I just want to, you know, conclude by saying I really, really urge everyone, when we think about women in STEM and promoting women in STEM, and this is my specific plea to my white sister colleagues, don't forget us. We are here and we want to be lifted up with you. You guys have a great thing going on right now. You have people fighting for you and going to bat for you and demanding that, you know, organizing committees and study sections. NIH now, you know, demands that the number of women and men be equal between speakers, but no one's demanding that there be, you know, 10% of the speakers be Black. We're 12% of the population. Why does that not matter, you know? Anyway, I just want to put that out there as food for thought. That's the end of my presentation. I really, again, urge you, especially for the more senior faculty here who are in positions of power to make decisions, to not forget us.